My name is Allison Daughtery, and for the Biology 181 lab final project on the accuracy of popular media reports, I looked at a popular news article from New York Times called "Fossil Reveals Secrets of One of Nature's Most Mysterious Reptiles." This article received its information from a primary literature article in communications biology called "An Exceptionally Preserved Sphenodon-like Sphenodontian Reveals Deep Time Conservation of the Tuatara Skeleton and Ontogeny." The news article "Fossil Reveals Secrets of One of Nature's Most Mysterious Reptiles" explains the discovery of a fossil and its extreme similarity to a modern species that reveal evidence of minimal evolutionary changes in the last 190 million years. Because species typically evolve over time, it is very unique that this modern tuatara has very minimally changed since this fossil of its ancestors. While this fossil has been in Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology for decades, it was just discovered by Stephanie Pierce and her team. It was studied in depth by using micro-CT scans to piece together the fossil into a three-dimensional representation of the animal. This was then compared to modern tuataras, and it revealed that they are extremely similar with very few differences, like their jaws. This puzzled experts and has opened new questions, but provides important data on the evolution of this species. This news article received the information from the primary source article. An exceptionally preserved sphenodon-like sphenodontian reveals deep time conservation of the tuatara skeleton and ontogeny, and gives a brief summary, cutting out much of the scientific language. In doing this, they slightly oversimplify, leading to some misinterpretation. Personally, after reading the news article, I still had questions and was unsure exactly what the fossil was doing to assist in the understanding of the evolution of these species. The primary literature article filled in these missing pieces. This was the 19-page article that was summarized by the news article and went in depth about not only the two species that the news article focused on, but also over 20 other species as well. Because of the length and detail of the primary article, the news article needed to be simplified in order to make it understandable to the general public. In cutting out most of the scientific language, it left some gaps that the primary article can fill in. The discovery can now be better summarized as a fossil from North America that has been in Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology was recently discovered by Stephanie Pierce and her team, who made three-dimensional figures of the species using micro-CT scans that were used to name the species Navajo Sphenodon sani. The Navajo Sphenodon sani is the earliest known relative to the modern tuatara, or the Sphenodon punctatus, that currently lives in New Zealand. After analyzing the figures created with the micro-CT scans, researchers found that these species are surprisingly similar given the 190 million years that modern tuataras have had to evolve. This fossil is the most complete sphenodontian ever discovered from this continent and provides overwhelming support for this species, the Navajo Sphenodon sani, as one of the oldest members of the tuatara lineage. In the news report, they mention this fossil that was found, but in an attempt to leave out the scientific name of the species, information becomes confusing. It does a poor job distinguishing between the two organisms being compared. After reading the news article, I did not realize that there were two different similar organisms, as they only mention one scientific name and one common name rather than both for each organism. It almost morphed the two species into one in an attempt to simplify the language used. It does acknowledge under the image that this fossil is of the Navajo Sphenodon sani, but it drops the name with little explanation or context. They use an introduction that only talks about tuatara, so it is easy to believe that the fossil is from an ancient tuatara if you are unaware of the scientific name of these species. While there was no real misinformation, it was misleading without the needed context. A combination of this and the exaggerated similarities expressed about the two species caused further confusion about their identity. While the information presented is again not false, it leads to misinterpretation as the similarities are emphasized and the differences are condensed and skimmed over. While the news article only mentions one difference, the Sphenodon punctatus having a jaw that ends in a set of beak-like fused teeth, the primary source article spends a few paragraphs distinguishing the differences between species. They mention how the differences are more than evident enough to differentiate between them, but given the extreme time difference, they are very minor from an evolutionary perspective. The news article simplified this in an attempt to make it more digestible, but they should have better differentiated the species to prevent misinformation. As a whole, the news article accurately summarized the primary literature article and mentioned the important points of the study. Because of the overwhelming scientific language used, the news article is necessary to present this information to the general public, as this study would have only reached a select group of individuals. While the simplification may cause slight confusion, it is much easier to understand than the primary literature article, and the author of the New York Times article, Jack Timosia, did an impressive job summarizing and focusing the article into information that is interesting for the common person.